I want to tell you a story. It's the story of us, but it might not be the story you think you know. We're going to peel back the layers of time and look at our species not as the inevitable rulers of a planet, but as, well, as just another animal with a past full of forgotten family and a really shocking secret. Go ahead, take a look in the mirror. Who do you see staring back? You see a human face, right? It's the most familiar sight in the world, the same basic model you'll find 8 billion times over across the globe. You see a Homo sapiens. For what feels like forever, at least the last 10,000 years or so, to be human has meant to be one of us. We are, and have been for a long, long time, the only human species on the entire planet. But what if I told you that our solitude, this uniqueness that we completely take for granted, is actually the strangest thing about us? It's a very new thing in the grand scheme of things, which brings us to the one question that changes absolutely everything. Were we always alone? Because the answer is no, not even close. We had family, other kinds of humans who walked this earth right alongside us. Their story is our story, and it is high time we uncovered our family's greatest secret. Now, our story doesn't start with us at the top. Far from it. For most of our existence, we were, to put it bluntly, nothing special, just an unremarkable animal hiding in the middle of the food chain. We love to think of ourselves as the peak of evolution, right? Destined to dominate. So, what was our secret? What special something did we have that would one day let us walk on the moon and decode the secrets of life itself? You ready for this? The shocking, humbling answer is, for a very, very long time, absolutely nothing. We were insignificant. Just another creature minding its own business, having no more impact on the world than a gorilla or a firefly. We were hunted just as often as we hunted. The amount of time we're talking about here is it's mind-boggling. For millions of years, the vast, vast majority of human history, we were just trying not to die. We picked berries, we scavenged leftovers from more powerful predators, and we ran from things that wanted to eat us. It was only about 100,000 years ago that our species, Homo sapiens, finally made that sudden, spectacular jump to the top of the food chain. And you know, that leap becomes even more mysterious when you realize we weren't the only humans in the game. To really get what happened, you need to meet our lost relatives. We have this image in our heads, right, of human evolution as this neat, straight line, like that famous drawing of an ape slowly standing up and turning into a modern human, one species just replacing the next. Simple. Oh, the reality was so much messier and way more interesting. The truth is, the world was once a human planet, full of different kinds of humans. For most of history, Earth was home to several human species, all living at the very same time. We had company. Just try to picture it. Over in Europe and Asia, you had the Neanderthals, stocky, powerful, and built for the cold. Across East Asia, there was Homo erectus, maybe the most successful human ever, surviving for almost 2 million years. On a tiny island in Indonesia, they were the little hobbit people, Homo floresiensis, and we only know about another group, the Denisovans, from a few little bones found in a cave in Siberia. So this is the really key takeaway. Us being the only humans around, that's not normal. That's the weird part. That's the historical mystery. The real question isn't why were there other humans, but why is there now only one? And to get to the bottom of that mystery, we first have to understand the steep price we paid for what we think of as our advantages. Because every single gift we got from evolution came with a pretty serious catch. So let's talk about our huge brains. Seems like a total win, right? But that brain is an energy hog, just sitting there doing nothing. Your brain is burning 1/4 of your body's calories. That's a massive drain. To fuel it, we had to spend way more time looking for food, and that energy had to come from somewhere. So it came from our muscles. A chimpanzee can't solve a math problem, sure, but it could literally tear you apart like a rag doll. For a long time, it was a really bad trade. Or how about walking upright? Fantastic! It freed up our hands to make tools, which was a total game changer. But the cost was huge. It gave us bad backs and stiff necks, and for women, it created a life or death crisis. See, to walk on 2 legs, our hips had to get narrower, right as our babies' heads were getting bigger. Childbirth became one of the most dangerous things a human could do. But here's where it gets amazing. That very crisis led to one of our greatest strengths. Evolution's workaround was for human babies to be born, well, prematurely, way before they're really ready. And that means our infants are uniquely helpless, needing years of nonstop care. A single mother just couldn't do it alone. You needed a whole tribe. That biological problem forced us to develop the incredibly strong social bonds that would make us unstoppable. Okay, so you have Homo sapiens armed with these big, expensive brains and super tight-knit social groups, finally spreading out from Africa. And as they moved across the world, they met their long-lost cousins. And then, one by one, those cousins vanished. What on earth happened? Well, the detective file basically has two competing theories. One is kind of a love story, the interbreeding theory. It suggests that when sapiens met their relatives, they mingled, and the populations just merged together. The other theory is more of a war story, the replacement theory. It argues that sapiens were just better at surviving, and they outcompeted or even violently wiped out everyone else. For decades, everyone figured it was the war story. It seemed to make sense. But then, we figured out how to read the stories hidden in ancient DNA, and our own genes gave us a bombshell clue. Turns out, if you have European or Middle Eastern ancestry, you are carrying between 1% and 4% Neanderthal DNA. It wasn't a total replacement. They're still here, inside us. And then another clue turned up. Modern Melanesians and Aboriginal Australians carry up to 6% Denisovan DNA. So the real story is much more complicated. It seems we mostly did replace them, but not entirely. There were these rare moments of connection, just enough to leave a genetic ghost in our own DNA. And all of this brings us back to right now. Here we are, the last human standing, the sole survivors of a family that was once big and diverse. What does it actually mean to be the last one left? I mean, just pause for a second and try to imagine that world. A world where other human species were still around. Would our holy books say that Neanderthals have souls? Would the US Constitution hold that all species of the genus Homo are created equal? Let's be honest, tolerance isn't exactly our species' strongest trait. It's a dark thought, but maybe it was their similarity to us that our ancestors just couldn't stand. And that leads to this one final, haunting idea. We were this insignificant animal that shot to the top of the food chain so fast that the ecosystem didn't have time to adjust. And more importantly, we didn't have time to adjust. We're a species full of the fear and anxiety of our millions of years as underdogs. And that anxiety, now that we're on top, might be what makes us so cruel and dangerous. We are the lonely rulers of this planet, and just maybe, we made ourselves lonely on purpose.